actually first asked me at the beginning of the year to do this, and I was like, no, I'm good. I haven't spoken in front of people since Masters, and that's been 11 years ago. And I spoke in front of 5,000 people in each service. So that wasn't as nerve-wracking as this is. But I actually just got it together today because I've known the topic of what I wanted to do, but not really how I wanted to do it. And I am going to cry, so just fair warning. My daughter is named after Esther in the Bible. That came about because me and Nick were fighting over what we were going to name the baby, whether it was a boy or a girl. And we had written out names, and I finally just threw the names away, and I said, okay, God, you get to name this one. I just won't name any of them. And Esther and Ezekiel were the two names that were chosen, and Nick didn't like Ezekiel, but I told him he was going to have to deal with it. And so when we found out it was a girl, I told him I wanted it Esther Noel. And so that's how she came about her name. And I was laying in bed last night, Todd just talking to her, and I said, are you going to be a queen? You got a lot to live up to. You got a name to live up to. And I know that God.
Now I'm going to cry. I don't know what you're going to say.
I know that God has a plan for her life, or He wouldn't have had me name her that. And Esther did big things, and she was just a small girl. She was just a teenager. So, anyway, my topic tonight is for such a time as this. During my life, there's always been times where I've been like, okay, I don't really know why I'm going through this or what's going on. And then at the end, I realized, okay, somebody else needed to hear this story, or somebody else is going through this now, and I came through it, and I'm alive, and I'm still here. With Esther, in the beginning, when Mordecai got Esther, her parents had died. She was a female. She was lucky she got to live. During those days, it was the boys were assets and the girls were a problem. The girls were not accepted. The girls were not, they weren't wanted. And so for Mordecai to take that burden on, that was a big thing. Mordecai became more than just her guardianship. He became her mentor. He talked her through everything in her life and her steps, even all the way up to being queen, and even beyond that when he became the king's right-hand man. The second thing is that Esther she found favor with Haggai. Haggai, whenever she went up to the kingdom, and Haggai was the eunuch over the harem where she went. She found favor with him, and he put her in the best room, gave her the best 7 maids, gave her everything before any of the other ones did. And she was there for a reason at that time. She always found favor with whoever she came in contact with. From that point on, from there, she went to the king. She found favor with the king, and he is the one that crowned her queen on that day that she went in there. In Esther chapter 4, Mordecai, after Haman had sent out the decree for all the Jews to be killed and to be hanged, Mordecai and all the Jews all throughout Persia, the 127 provinces, they all ripped their clothes and were in sackcloth and were in ashes. And of course, at that point, Mordecai couldn't go into the king's courtyard. And so Mordecai was at the yard. And so when Esther heard about this, she sent her eunuch down and her maids down to give him clothing, and he denied it. He didn't want the clothing. So she sent her one eunuch down to go and find out, what was going on. Why was he like this, And when he came back and told her that Haman had sent out a decree to kill all the Jews, Esther didn't know what to do. She wasn't going to go before the king because she didn't want to risk her life. She knew that if she went before the king and he did not accept her, she would die. She would be killed. Mordecai pleaded with her and told her that you will not... Let me see. Hold on. Let me find it. Sorry. He said, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows, but that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this. Esther was sent to save her people. If Mordecai hadn't taken her into his life, none of this would ever happen. The Jews would have been killed. God's people would have been killed at that point in time. During that time, whenever she told him to fast for 3 days for her, fast food and water, and that her and her maids would do the same. And on that day that she went in to see the king, he found favor with her. He stuck out that gold scepter, and he found favor with her and told her whatever it is that she wants up to half the kingdom. And all she did was request his presence and Haman's presence at the banquet. And so they went to the banquet, and that same night he asked her the same question, what do you desire? What do you want? Up to half of my kingdom. And she said, come to another banquet tomorrow that I prepare for you and Haman. She didn't just want the king's hand, she wanted the king's heart. She wanted beyond just the what can I get from him, this mentality. She didn't want that. She wanted it as heart. So at the second banquet, when Esther told the king about Haman's plan, of course the king was furious, and Haman was killed, also along with all the people that had went along with this plan. And in my life, for such a time as this, in situations I didn't understand. At 17, I had some things happen, and it took my life into a whirlwind. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what was going on. And I let it lead me in a direction that put me on rock bottom. But God lifted me up at that point. After that, I joined the military. Yeah, now I see it as a good thing. Then I was just wanted to get away from everything and everybody here. And joined the Marine Corps. Told my parents on Easter, I leave in 3 weeks for the Marine Corps. You had no idea that I joined, but I'm going. I went through boot camp. I went through all my training, begged Mom to get me out of it numerous amounts of times. And even through all the things that I went through at boot camp, at MOS school, at my training, once I got out to California, I was by myself. I had no one, no friends, no family, nothing. I was by myself. I got there in December of 2007. I met Nick in February of 2008. We were married in July of 2008. But Nick came into my life at a time where I was afraid I was fixing to be diagnosed with cervical cancer. And Mama came in to visit. She had met him. I was having my procedure the next week. And he told her, he said, don't worry about her, I got her. I had no idea about this until she told me several weeks later. So Nick was brought into my life at such a time that I needed someone. But during the military, we ran from God. He grew up Lutheran. He didn't. He grew up drinking beer with his pastor. His pastor was the one that brewed the beer. But without kids, even before he got married, we lived the high life with people on base. We were always at the smoke pit. We were always going out. We were doing whatever. And so when we got married and we got our own place, we had a buddy of ours live with us, and we still ran from God. But I still had enough of an influence in me and enough of growing up in church that I couldn't run that far. I knew where my line was. I knew where I had to stop because I knew from that point I wasn't ever coming back from that point. And when I was pregnant with Hunter, I got out. At 5 months pregnant, I got out of the Marines. And a buddy of ours was getting ready to deploy. He had a house in Fallbrook. So we moved 45 miles from our apartment in Oceanside to Fallbrook, which is out in the big middle of nowhere. Mom and Dad had came out to help us move because I was pregnant and I couldn't lift any of the stuff. And we got moved into the house, and it just so happened that Nick and Dad took the back way into base through the Fallbrook gate. And they passed by a small Assemblies of God church. They were supposed to be leaving that Saturday. Dad paid the extra money and Mom stayed over to make sure that we went to church that Sunday. And we did. And we liked it, but we didn't stay faithful to it. He deployed. I came home. I was here. Even when we got back, it was so difficult even to get back in the swing of life that we didn't. And for some reason, one day I told him, I said, we got to get help. We got to start going to church. We got to do so. We have kids. And so we started going, and we started going every Sunday. But I told him, and I even told Mom, I said, I do not want these people to know that I am a pastor's kid. And you laugh, and I know it's funny, but not that that's a bad label at all. It can be paid, but people expect more of you. They want you to do everything. They want you to be involved in everything. They think that you should be holier than thou, and you shouldn't make a mistake, and you shouldn't be this way, and you should live this way. And that's not the case. I spent a lot of my life running from that, and a lot of my life trying to prove people wrong that I wasn't that way. And we got back into church, and me and Nick had fought about it. He was going to go to a Lutheran church, and he was taking the kids, and once they got old enough to decide, then they could decide. But when we finally started going out there to Fallbrook, he decided that he liked it. It was a bunch of old people. We were the youngest people there. But the love that they showed us, you know, and they passed by that church at the time that we needed it. And, you know, I went through things in my life for a reason, for such a time as this. I've been able to talk to people about things in my life that actually encourage them in things that they're going through at that time. We moved back here. Every other word out of our mouths was divorce. I'm done with this. I don't want to do this. I don't know anybody here. I want to leave. I don't want to be here. And it was stupid. I mean, it was stupid. He's like, I hate it here because every single time I say something, you're like, I'm going to leave you. And I was. I was. But I was mad. Why? I don't know. I'll never know. The Marine Corps did bad things. Had a bad effect on me in one way, but it had a good effect on me in other ways. I have a strong work value. I worked at Farmers for a little over 4 years before I left to stay home with my kids. And I left in the right way. I didn't just walk out. I didn't just not show up. It brought me Nick. I wouldn't have him and my 4 kids if it wasn't for that. My mother-in-law and I have had our problems, or so we thought. We thought we hated each other, and then come to find out, we really didn't have a problem with each other. And they came down for Nick's graduation, and all my kids talk about is, when are they coming back? When do we get to see them again? And so I messaged her the other day, and I said, we're ready to see you again. When can you come back down? But, you know, and we have a couple, the guy that lived with us, him and his wife, we became really close friends with them. And even after I left, even during the times that we weren't living our lives right, she still knew that I prayed. She still knew that I knew God and that God would answer my prayers. And she would message me every once in a while, hey, we're going through this, can you pray for us? Hey, my family's going through this, will you pray for us? So even during the times of our stupidity, we were there for a reason. We were there for that time. Even though it might have been hard financially, emotionally, everything, we were there for that reason. Just like we're here for this reason, and you are here for such a time as this. No matter what you're going through, in the end of it, you may find somebody that's going through the same thing that you were. And you have that testimony to be able to stand up and say, hey, I went through that. And this is what God did for me at the end of it. All you got to do is look at the end of it and pray about it and get through it, and you'll be better at the end of it. Your time is now. You're here for this time.
And I know you were nervous, but you shouldn't have been, because we all like it. We kind of knew. I have to tell y'all this. Whenever